Welcome, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's very good to be together, I find, in uncertain times. And so, thank you for being here. Reverend Leon Dunkley is away today, but we have a great privilege and treat in having Denise Lyons and Jill Davies give our reflection and tell us something about the organization which they have given so much time and talent to, the Hub. And so they will be giving that reflection together, and I'll be asking them questions and they'll be talking to you, not to me. Tatum is here with some children to go down, yep. And maybe more, I see one more coming in just now. And let's see. I think there's another announcement. Yeah. An important announcement, I will say, from Kathy.
Good morning. I'm Kathy Ostenborski, and I just wanted to talk a little bit this morning about what North Chapel means to me. I found the North Chapel many years ago now. I had met a friend while working behind the scenes in community theater, and I felt an instant connection with him. I loved his openness and transparency, and I felt we were in alignment when we had whispered, of course, conversations backstage about anything that crossed our minds. He shared with me that he attended services here. A few weeks after the production had wrapped up, I was driving past the North Chapel on a Sunday and saw my friend and his partner coming out of the building and onto the porch for what I now know was lemonade and snacks after the service. Along with my friend, a whole wave of beautiful, laughing people gathered on the porch for refreshments and conversation. I knew right then and there that I had wanted to be a part of that group of people. I've done a fair amount of church shopping in my life, and I had been doing just that when I had that experience on that sunny spring day. The next Sunday, I attended the service at North Chapel, and I was immediately hooked. Having grown up attending, not necessarily on my own free will, the Catholic Church, when I heard the words, "All are welcome here" at North Chapel, I literally was brought to tears. What a simple concept, and so foreign in so many places. And all these years later, I know that this congregation is all about making everyone who walks through that door feel welcome and a part of this wonderful community. In my experience, there are not a lot of places where the importance of making people feel accepted, valued, and included is front and center to all else that transpires. North Chapel has also shown me that this is a place where people walk the walk. We don't just talk about social injustice. There are real conversations and planning about how to rectify those injustices. This is a place where different opinions are shared and listened to, in a space that is safe to do so. Over the past years, and maybe especially the past few months, this has been an element of this special place that has become very important to me. We need safe spaces, such as North Chapel, more than ever, to have challenging discussions, to learn about different perspectives, as well as those we share with one another. Life can be hard, right? So many things happening in our world are scary. The climate crisis, economic insecurity, political discord, war, it can all be really overwhelming. I struggle with finding a way to keep all of this scary stuff at bay, or at least in perspective. What has kept me coming back to North Chapel is the safety and peace I can absorb here, not just on Sunday, but throughout the week, month, and year. So many Sundays I have come to the service struggling, personally, professionally, globally, and I always leave feeling lighter, more hopeful, more balanced. There is nowhere else I can count on that support as consistently as I find here. It has been my privilege to be on the board of trustees for the North Chapel for several years now. In serving on the board, I have become more aware of the financial realities of what it takes to keep this wonderful place we all count on moving forward. It's hard. Membership is declining, expenses are increasing, you all know that. During these few weeks of the stewardship drive, we try and find creative ways to encourage you to pledge and to think about what North Chapel means to you. I appreciate this time this morning to let you know what North Chapel means to me. I encourage you all to reflect on that for yourselves and support this wonderful place as you can, so we can continue to move forward together in community, in peace, in fellowship for a better world. And I just want to, I know you've had inserts in the order of service that have explained that the goal is $130,000 for the pledge drive. And right now we are at $41,746 with 21 people having pledged. So we have a ways to go. So if you can do what you can, there's envelopes in the back that you can then put into the collection if you wanted to fill them out, or Anne can probably take them, I would think, or you can mail them in. So thank you.
For opening words this morning, I would like to read Robert Frost's poem, My November Guest. Over the years, or decades now, when I've been service coordinator during the month of November, I've read this same poem from this pulpit. I've always loved the imagery in it, reminding me not to miss the beauty of November as I steel myself for endless months of gray, cold, icy winter days. But today, as I read over the words of the poem, just 2 days before the election, with all its concomitant anxiety, I kind of thought of a new meaning beyond the imagery in this poem. Frost talks about his November guest as being his sorrow. She's a she. And he has her with him from time to time. But what I felt when I was reading it was he's not identified with her, and he is not her, and he can fondly observe her. And that was helpful to me somehow, that we don't, well, I'll let you get it. My sorrow, when she's here with me, thinks these dark days of autumn rain are beautiful as days can be. She loves the bare, the withered tree. She walks the sodden pasture lane. Her pleasure will not let me stay. She talks and I am fain to list. She's glad the birds are gone away. She's glad her simple worsted gray is silver now with clinging mist. The desolate, deserted trees, the faded earth, the heavy sky, the beauty she so truly sees, she thinks I have no eye for these and vexes me for reason why. Not yesterday, I learned to know the love of bare November days before the coming of the snow, but it were vain to tell her so, and they are better for her praise. Okay, so we welcome you, and we're going to get right started with this so you have time. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you some questions about the hub, and then you'll talk to them, okay? First of all, could you explain for those who don't know what the hub is and how it works?
Okay, so we're both going to read a bit about what the hub is. So we realized, working through many different crises in this area, that life just has a way of surprising us with unexpected challenges. It could be a broken furnace, a car that doesn't start, or a threatening medical diagnosis, or a flood that washes out your driveway. And any of those things just bring more expenses. And when those bills start piling up, the road ahead just seems overwhelming and people don't know how they're going to cope with those extra bills. So the hub is the helping hand that can change everything and gives everybody the strength to stand up on their own once more. Just like the song that we had earlier, that we help each other, we help our neighbors.
And I'll just add to that, this is coming from a letter that we just sent out to supporters of the hub, and we wanted them to know what our applicants, people who've received funding from the hub, say to us. When they hear the hub is here for you, it reassures them that they are not alone in facing their difficulties. They realize that a caring community will do what it can to support them through a crisis and to give them a chance to thrive again in the place they call home.
Why do you think the hub is a good topic for the Sunday before the presidential election?
Want me to go?
Yeah.
I guess there are lots of ways to answer that. One is that sometimes when things are happening at this national level, it can be overwhelming and we can feel helpless. And so if we can turn our attention to our local community, there's a greater chance that we can make a difference and feel some satisfaction for our efforts. So I think the local focus is a big part of it. But also what our neighbors are dealing with, what we're all dealing with, are the results of these policies that are made at the national level. Income inequality is certainly a driver for what people are facing, the people who come to the hub, for all of us. We're not making distinctions. The affordable housing crisis, and the very thin safety net that we have as a society. So this is a way for us to make a difference on those issues that are driven by national dynamics and affecting all of us right here in our community.
And how is the hub connected to North Chapel, both now and before?
So the hub is very connected to North Chapel. Denise and I are members of the church and have been for a long time. Judy Williamson is part of the hub and is here today. Joanne works with us to help keep everything flowing. Lynn Peterson is the father of all of this, working with the community and helping people. And I think that probably the first time that we helped in a crisis was when we were with Sustainable Woodstock, which came from the North Chapel. And then the hub is an outgrowth of that. So I think the North Chapel is highly involved in the hub, and all of the values of the North Chapel are reflected in the hub.
Yeah, it's funny, sitting here this morning, I thought everything everybody has said is about the hub. As Jill said, the hymn that Diane chose, and all the words that people have said about social justice and caring for each other and finding support and solace with one another in community. That's really what the hub is about. So yesterday, Richard and I went out getting out the vote in New Hampshire. We had a lovely time. And Richard said, I hear you're talking tomorrow about the hub. Is there anything spiritual in that? My good friend Richard. So it prompted me to think of two things. One, if you were here last week, our wonderful speaker talked about the role that the two UU principles play in her life. The first, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. That's the second. And that, again, is what the hub is all about. And then this week I was reading a newsletter that I get. We all get newsletters about various topics, and this comes from the Center for Contemplation and Action, and it was talking about Barbara Holmes, who's a wonderful theologian who died recently. And I read her words about spiritual practice, and I said, that is what we're doing in all of our meetings every week. Barbara Holmes said, as a spiritual practice, we can wake up to the possibility of building a new order. We can improvise those possibilities, try them out in the creative microcosm of a shared public life. And that's what we're doing all the time, is experimenting in this microcosm here of how we can make, what she says is realizing that our way of life could be improved so that all members of society thrive. So there's your answer, Richard.
I think you've sort of answered the next question too, but if you want to say anything more about it, what drew each of you to this work and what is the source of your passion?
So mine is what Denise talked about before. I find myself paralyzed when I think about world events or national events. So I like to work in my community where I can make a difference and see the difference that I make.
And I was thinking really about my family, that I grew up in a very Irish, very Catholic family, and my parents were first and second generation Americans, and they were very close to the experience of the really dire poverty that drove their parents to come to the United States. And we kept very close to our family in Ireland. So I think the idea of we are each other's keepers was very much a part of my Irish family and also Catholicism. I can have complications with the Catholic Church today, but that spirit of Dorothy Day and the Catholic worker, and that, again, we are all in this together and we need to look out for each other in various ways, was just, my parents were subtle in it, but it was very much kind of the ethos of the family we grew up in. And so I've loved being in Woodstock, where we spend a lot of time thinking about how can we be a good community for each other. And so it feels very much like my daily life here.
Can you tell us maybe a couple of stories about the people who receive funding?
Can I tell our favorite? So this is our favorite because I think it just illustrates all that we've been talking about. So during the floods last July, you remember there was a water breakdown in Woodstock, and so the businesses were closed. And a lot of people work at Montvert Cafe, and they were without wages for a couple of weeks. So we worked with the Woodstock Economic Commission to make sure that people were reimbursed to a certain extent anyway for their salaries. And so there was one young person who was in touch with one of our volunteer case advocates, and they'd been chatting and about how to make these arrangements to get the funding. And he wrote to her and said, you know, it's so amazing now, every time somebody comes into the cafe and I serve them coffee, I think, wow, that might have been somebody who donated those funds to help me pay my bills. And I thought, you know, that is just such a wonderful example of showing people that they're cared about and that they belong here. And we hear it over and over again, Jill's gonna say, about, wow, strangers cared enough about my life to make this happen.
So there are three main reasons why people come to us for help, and I'm going to tell you a story for each of them. So the first one, the one that we get most requests for, is when somebody has a medical-related financial crisis. So one partner perhaps has a major diagnosis. In this case, a partner had to go for extensive surgery following a serious accident, something that could happen to any of us, and that resulted in 6 months of lost wages for the applicant. Before that, both the applicant and the partner had been working full-time and supporting their 3 children, but this one thing just knocked them off the rails. So they wrote back to us and said, Thank you for your kind words and encouragement. The Hub has made a huge difference in my ability to recover from this surgery without the added worry of how to pay the rent. Thank you does not seem adequate, but I say it 100 times over. Another frequent request is to help people with their heating or utility bills. So here's a story from one person who had taken leave of their job to care for a terminally ill parent, and then they had lost 3 months' salary. And so that left their family budget, which was also helping 2 children. They were unable to pay their bills. So the applicant's now back at work and things are getting back to normal. And in their words, I wanted to say thank you for paying my electric and propane bills. I don't know what I would have done without you. You got me over a big hurdle. I believe I'll be all set now for quite a while. So I want to thank you for your contribution. And I think that's a story that we do most often. We pay a bill and then people get back on an even keel. So we're not supporting people forever. We're paying a couple of bills and then they recover themselves, but we help them to recover. Another one that is increasing more these days is housing insecurity. So in this case, despite working more than full-time, the applicant and the partner could not meet their basic living expenses. I think they had 3 jobs between them, and they were struggling to make the rent payments in a timely fashion. So the Hub was able to help them both by paying a bill and by also working with them and their landlord to help to develop a payment plan so they could, again, come back on that even keel and know that they could afford their bills going forwards. Their story is lovely. We cannot tell you how much you helped change our perspective from all gloom and doom to positive. You listened to us and seemed to understand things about our situation that might help change it for the better. Pointing out some helpful places for us to look to try to overcome where we felt so stuck has been so helpful, and gave us the confidence to start looking at other things differently too, which has reduced our stress considerably. So the Hub helps neighbours, and I think with a stress reliever.
Having asked for funds ourselves, Joby and I did, not thinking that we should, but being urged to after the flood, and after not getting flood insurance covered, and then FEMA not covering the outside of the flood, we were paying a lot out of pocket, and then the furnace failed. And so we needed a new furnace. And someone, who will remain nameless, urged me to apply, which is something that I didn't feel that I could do because I was aware of people's needs much greater than mine. So talk about that, how it is hard for people to ask, and how the Hub handles that anonymity too. Although I've just blown the antenna.
She's the only one we know. Well, I don't think it's news to anybody here that, excuse me, that it's hard to ask for help. And you know, for a lot of reasons. Often we hear from people, and I won't mention any names, somebody else said this, oh, others need it more than I do. I know that's really a generous response from people that I don't want to take funds that somebody else could use, and somebody needs it more than I do. There's also, especially in Vermont, a sense of rugged individualism, and that I should be able to take care of myself, and that there's some shame or guilt in being in asking for help, and also, you know, with good reason, because there are lots of judgments that are made about asking for help, and it makes us feel vulnerable. So we find that people often wait too long to ask for help. So we're encouraging people to come to us, you know, before things get really out of control. That's a better time, and just knowing that asking for help and giving help is something we're doing all the time. I mean, I was thinking about this this morning. If you ran a little thought experiment about how many times already today you've offered help and been given help. You know, somebody handed you the program and we slid over so, you know, Ken could sit in the seat, and we were just doing this all the time. So why and it's how we have to behave to be in community, right? We have to offer and receive help. It's just what society is about. So part of our effort is to just make it easier for people to say, I need help. And I loved, again, Diane's hymn this morning. The last line is about, if I don't help, I'll be a burden, I'll be heavy. So it's just good for everybody when we ask and receive help.
So a couple of practical ways that we keep that anonymity. When people make an application, they often do it online. We have volunteer case advocates who speak to people by telephone, then they don't recognize them by face. Everybody is given a nickname. So Denise and I have no idea who is getting help. The case advocate knows, the person who writes the check knows. Probably 3 people in the total organization have any idea of the names. And whenever we talk about applicants, we use their nicknames so that none of us know who's asking for help, who's receiving help. That's totally private.
I think I noticed on the hub letter that in 2024 you gave out, am I allowed to say,
Yeah.
$350,000. And I'm wondering, how do you get that?
So Denise and I have learned some new skills recently, and that's called asking. If you ask for help, tell people what you're doing, ask if they can help, and then people give.
Is there anything else that you would like us to know about this?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking us. Mary, I don't know whether Jill mentioned this, but Mary is one of the key partners that we have in the hub. She's very active in Barnard Helping Hands. And one of the roles of the hub is not only to distribute funds through our own system, but also we connect people with the community relief organizations that exist in the 7 towns that we serve. So Mary's very involved with Barnard Helping Hands. And if someone contacts the hub who lives in Barnard, we get in touch with Mary and we work very closely. The North Chapel is also one of our partners. If someone comes to us and we think it's an instance where the North Chapel would want to get involved, we have here the Minister's Discretionary Fund and the Jantos Fund, which are all meant to help people who need this kind of support. And I remember years ago when Daniel Jantos was here and I was involved in those efforts, it really was a backdoor kind of operation. Somebody had to figure out where you could go in this town and maybe knock on the back door, and maybe the wonderful minister would be there, or now Joanne, or Leon. And one of the things that the hub wanted to do was to make this a front door operation, to let people know where you can go and to do one-stop shopping. So you don't have to run around and find out. You can come to the hub and then we can connect you to the various partners we have. So anything else we want to say is pay your pledge to the North Chapel first. And then if you have anything left over and you want to donate to the hub, we would welcome that. We also have information if you want to take it and pass it around or make use of it for yourselves. And we're always looking for volunteers who can do various tasks. But first you have to do all of that here, and then you can come to the hub. So